All right.
I was just asking.
And
I have
General
Yo,
question. That's all
before
it
we
is.
start,
it's
if you guys have played Fallout New Vegas, how do I get Boone to kill the person who killed his wife?
Oh my. Oh,
This is
you
why
have to
before we
go.
start.
This
Oh
is so
no.
stupid, but I actually know this off the top of my head. You have in the Novak inn
Yeah, I'm in
in
Novak.
the
I know who killed his wife. I just don't know where they are.
what you do is you go inside of you go inside of the little shop where she works. So you can get where you normally get the key to the bungalow. You pick the lock that's behind her desk when she's asleep at night. You wait until she comes back. Uh, um, you wait either until she's about to leave for work or when she's about to come into work when Boone is on post, and then you ask her to follow you, and then you walk her in front of the dinosaur. But
All
make
right,
sure
all
to get
right.
the bill of sale from her
I got the bill of
safe.
sale now. Yeah.
all right, guys. It's
All right,
that
thank
time.
you.
So we are live, guys, on Twitch. We're talking tonight about the Afghanistan withdrawal. So very, very short version. If anyone's somehow not familiar, it's been plastered all over the news. The United States has been withdrawing from Afghanistan, and in the last few weeks, it looks like the local Afghani government has failed to maintain control as we withdraw. So we're going to be discussing the withdrawal from Afghanistan. We've got 8 people on tonight. Like to get everyone's thoughts. If you keep it under 2 minutes, but let's go ahead and state your position first. Do you support the withdrawal or not, and then kind of expound on your reasons why. Truly, you said you wanted to start.
Yeah, sure. I'll go first. Overall, right now we have the Taliban taking control over the entire area. Before that, we had a little bit under 4,000 U.S. troops in the area. So this very minute group of people was able to keep the entire fucking country from going to the shit show that it is right now. And we are looking at a current country overwhelmingly controlled by the Taliban, which means we're going to go back to the ideas that the Taliban had when they were controlling the country before, when we had women being stoned for wearing inappropriate clothing, or girls having acid thrown in their face for going to school. So overall, the idea of the U.S. pulling out was absolutely ridiculous. It had no founding. There was no idea as to like how we would actually do it. And as we've done it, as we pulled out, as we did, um, the quote unquote power vacuum has been filled by other countries such as China, already willing to accept the Taliban rule of the country of Afghanistan.
All right. So just a reminder, everyone, we're in opening statements portion. Try not to respond to opening statements, but once we're done with these, we'll just have an open discussion. And you'll have every opportunity to respond. TC, what are your thoughts?
Um, I definitely don't like the Taliban, and is truly pointed out. I don't like the idea of young women, or anyone suffering that. At the same time, though, we've been over there for a long time, and we don't seem to be. Actually, it just seems like it's more political than we're actually doing anything, and I think at this point that we should just get out. Um, I just don't think we should be there anymore. I think the people in that country need to decide what they want, and if they want the Taliban, then that's should be their choice. So,
All right. Telex?
Yeah, forgive the audio. Yeah, Afghanistan is a pretty sad case because it's been used as a sort of pawn between the United States and USSR for a while. Both of which invading and occupying Afghanistan for a large period of time without any regard for the people living there. And I guess the consequence is, or at least the present consequence, is what we see now with the Taliban invading after 20 years of occupation. a lot of people are saying that there's fireworks. Sorry, that there's a lot of progress being rolled back and lost, but really it's more of a demonstration that there was never any progress insofar as fighting the Taliban is concerned, because what they're just as powerful as they were at any other point, like more so. So it's a really sad situation. There are still like independent pockets around Afghanistan which are resisting the Taliban in their own way, and we should support that. By we, I mean us. I mean not the military, right? They haven't done a very good job. So that's what I think. Thank you.
Texan?
Yeah. Sorry, my wife was talking with me. No, as far as actually dealing with Taliban and Afghanistan and all that. Look, I'm of that weird generation where when I was born, technically we weren't at war, but by the time I can actually start remembering things and thinking for myself, we were at war. And as long as I can remember, we've always had troops, in Afghanistan, and it's just I've never really seen any true benefit to this to the United States. I'm not saying we didn't go over there initially with a good reason, but it's gotten to the point where it's not worth the investment in manpower, people, economics, or on any level really. I feel sorry for the folks that live there, but America already has an internal discussion on: are we America the world police, or are we America out for ourselves? We're already having that internal discussion, so I don't know if we really need to continue that in a country where they clearly don't want us there. It's one thing where we're actually wanted or legitimately needed, but I agree in the sense that there's going to be a power vacuum, but this is just the logical conclusion of decades of Wilsonianism, and this is just it held to an extreme.
I'm sorry, just real quick. Decades of what?
Wilsonianism.
Wilsonianism. Okay.
For those of you not familiar, it's the colonial idea, the imperial idea, that was kind of put forth by Woodrow Wilson.
Okay. American legend.
Yeah, so I'm totally in support of the withdrawal. I think that the Taliban taking over, that falls solely on the Afghan government just being completely ineffective. When we left, they had around 300,000 were in the Afghan military, and the Taliban's numbers were somewhere around 75,000. So by all metrics, the Afghan military should have been able to hold their own against them. But as we saw, a lot of them just abandoned their posts. They ran. The president himself ran. Um, so yeah, they just didn't have a will to fight. So at that point, they're kind of getting what they support, and I think a lot of them were sympathetic to the Taliban, and so by leaving their posts, they're just handing over the country to the Taliban at this point. Um, when you look at the government themselves, they were highly corrupt. They were run on bribes. If you wanted to get a business license, if you wanted to go to school, a lot of that was through bribes to the government. So we were just kind of propping up this government that wasn't ever going to work well in Afghanistan. And now we have to send troops back to help with the withdrawal. So one of the things I'm sure we'll go over is the fact that the Secretary of Defense, I believe, was saying that it was very unlikely that Afghanistan would fall to the Taliban. And I think, yeah, when you look at it on paper, it probably shouldn't have, because again, by all metrics, we outnumbered them. They should have been able to hold them off longer than they did. So yeah, it falls solely on the Afghan government in my mind. And it's good that the U.S. pulled out when they did, because there's kind of a sunk cost fallacy there where I don't think we were ever going to make any more progress than we did.
Guerrero.
Well, I did used to believe that we should, well, not we, but that America should pull out of Afghanistan. I've had my mind changed on that recently, seeing the developments and how much progress the Taliban has made in like the areas that they have reconquered after the U.S. left. And I'm talking about like immediately. In the first couple of days, they had already claimed so much ground. And I've been reading a lot of like truly harrowing stories from people that lived in Kabul or just any of the other Afghan government controlled cities. And like I'm talking about like women who were teachers or doctors or basically things that the Taliban punishes women for being. These people are terrified that they're either going to get killed or that they're going to have to flee. I don't think any person on earth should have to feel that. And even though the U.S. Wasn't directly benefiting from the presence in Afghanistan, I would say that dozens, if not hundreds of thousands of people were.
and to pull out like that and not leave anything for the people, I think it is completely fucked up. I don't support it, at least in the way that it was done.
Ulysses?
Yeah, sure. So I think that the withdrawal is not really a good idea, especially the way it has been handled so far. We've done it quite hastily to the point we've left quite a few, well, one would assume, unwanted presents to the Taliban, giving them some helicopters, air support. Apparently, they had some control of like drones, at least from what I've read. I think that from what I've read, that Afghanistan, while it is not perfect, while it isn't like the democracy of America, it has gotten way better than what it was. And by this I mean we were starting to see developments in women's rights. We were starting to see developments in actually having some form of democracy, and apparently the people were starting to come around to actually enjoying. Or at least some form of democracy. They may not have probably enjoyed the American military presence, but that's up for debate, and we can go into that later. But I think that my mindset right now is that the situation in Afghanistan is entirely shit. The way we pulled out was entirely crap, and I don't support a withdrawal just because all of the progress that we've made so far just went down the drain in a couple of days. And it seems to me that what the Taliban are going to do is just going to undo all of the progress we necessarily made. And not only that, but we're seeing our foreign enemies, the Chinese government, the Russian government, they're now supporting this. And of course, it feels like that China is going to take a heavy interest into Afghanistan and make their Afghanistan basically another part of their Belt and Road Initiative, which to me, this Afghanistan it's like watching, it's basically like watching the TPP all over again. We're creating a power vacuum. We're leaving our presence there, and it's giving more power to our enemies than it is to us at this point. So those are my thoughts.
All right, so it leaves it down to me. I am very much against the withdrawal. I'm of the opinion that we didn't do enough beforehand. As American Legend mentioned, when we withdrew, the Taliban was estimated to have about 75,000 soldiers compared to the Afghani government's 300,000. But to me, that itself is a major failure on our part. In other conflicts in the past, such a thing would be unimaginable, right? Imagine if we, in World War II, we liberated France, marched into Germany, but then the Nazi government, didn't actually collapse. They receded and kept 100, 200,000 troops, and they remained for decades. Like that would have been unfathomable, right? Yeah, it's baffling to me that we never actually finished the job, as in finished off the Taliban military. They were largely, hiding in caves, but it seems to me like we were, patting ourselves in the back too early, and the withdrawal was absolutely silly to me. It's really kind of unbelievable. The costs, I don't really think the ongoing costs were that high considering what it was achieving. Today, we have people who are 18 years old in Afghanistan who, their entire lives they were under the U.S. supported government, but it's barely any, right? This has been, less than 20 years, if I remember the dates right, since they've actually secured the government there. And clearly, hindsight's 2020. They needed more time, but it should have been obvious to us. At any rate, I've said too much so far, so I'd like to open it up so we have an open discussion here.
Yeah, I just want to make a quick comment about China. Whether I guess China can take advantage of the power vacuum is, I hope something that isn't taken more seriously than it has to be, because the worst thing that could happen to Afghanistan now is that instead of being involved in a tug of war between the United States and the Soviet Union, it's in a tug of war between the United States and China. You'll just see a continuation of the exact same process that's been happening for the last 40 years, but more so. That
Yeah.
would be really sad.
Only if we look at that issue between as in view of the Afghani citizen. If we look at it in geopolitics, actual world politics, there's a big issue from the U.S. ceding Afghanistan to the Chinese government. And fuck, you were the lightest person that I wanted to fucking come after based off the opening statements that people made.
What?
Yeah, I had the least amount to come after you. So overall, really quickly, we just had opening statements. Everyone said what they wanted to say. I'm really interested in a few things. So italics.
Yeah.
Yep. So you said progress wasn't rolled back. That there was no progress in Afghanistan.
Well, no, I mean, if we're assuming that the United States was going to stay there forever, then that would count as progress. But that's really weird, and I think everyone is kind of implicitly uncomfortable with that. I think if in 10 years
why?
the United States, because that's a colony.
Yeah, we're still in Germany, 70 years after World War II. Why
Germany
is
wants
it
us there?
actually 80 years
truly-
after World War II?
Well,
Although
no,
I do
yeah, but
agree with you, you do have to admit that the situation in terms of the U.S. presence in Germany is very, very different to its presence in Afghanistan, right?
The current U.S. presence in Germany is different than the current presence in Afghanistan. But the U.S. presence in Afghanistan was literally the exact reason as to why we had people or the current presence in Afghanistan is the same argument as to why we had people in Germany right at the end of World War II.
it's different.
It's different.
Why?
It is
How?
significant. Okay, well,
How?
okay. Number one is major economic and political reasons why we should have been in West Germany, right? We were in West Germany for a number of reasons. One, to rebuild it. After
Yep.
the Second World War, we were the one that blew it up. So let's put it back together. That's number one. Number two is the area already was economically and socially aligned.
Number
with us.
one's your first point is a very interesting argument when you're talking about the U.S. pulling out of Afghanistan after literally blowing the entire country into
I don't doubt
oblivion.
that we've blown up large chunks of Afghanistan, but it's kind of like, all right, if you take something from, if you take something that was developing and you blow it up, or you take something that is developed and you blow it up. I'm not saying that Afghanistan was a total waste, but even before we invaded it, it still was a third world country. It's worth significantly less value.
But it wasn't by the time we pulled out. Afghanistan's GDP, their wealth per capita, their GDP per capita was drastically increasing over the time that we were there.
Yeah, because of us.
Yeah, because of us. So again, why? So yes, I agree. Again, this leads nowhere near the idea that we should have pulled out.
Should we have been there forever?
Should we have been there forever? We should have been there for as long.
Pull out.
Mm-hmm. Whenever the Afghani government is capable of handling their own country by themselves, which they were nowhere near by the time we pulled out.
I don't think this ever would have happened.
But it's their country.
Awesome. So then the U.S. should have kept our 3,000 troops in Afghanistan until the end of time. Fuck yeah, we keep more troops in Germany right now.
But
yes.
Germany is totally different. Germany
why?
wants us there.
Wait, why?
I mean,
We've been keeping troops in Germany since World War II. The reason we keep troops in Germany is because of World War II.
But they want us to. If the Afghanistans do not want us to be there, then we should not be there.
actively fighting us in the streets, blowing up buildings,
Yeah, so why
attacking
would
convoys.
you do that?
I don't know what you're looking at to where that the Afghan people don't want the United States there, but as far as any poll I'm aware of, the Afghan government doesn't want the Afghan people don't want the Taliban in charge of Afghanistan.
I'm looking at the specific numbers.
Wait, really quickly, because there's a very important thing here. The Afghanistan people don't want the Taliban in charge of their state, and the only way that doesn't happen is by the U.S. being there.
The thing is
Sorry,
it
real quick, TC. What were you trying to say, Guerrero?
Yeah.
I was just gonna say that I'm gonna look up the specific numbers because I am fairly certain that I have seen polls where I think it is over 50% of Afghanis do want America to keep some presence there. Because they are fucking terrified of the Taliban. At least in the cities and like the parts which were controlled by the Afghan government before the withdrawal.
Sorry, what were you trying to say, TC?
I think if we would have gone in there and not screwed things up and maybe did things correctly, yeah, I could, agree with going in there and helping and, setting things up. But to me, it just looks like it's become nothing but this proxy war between, we just seem to be sinking more and more, like the Vietnam War. I mean, at what point are you going to say, there's enough?
It's not even remotely similar to the Vietnam War, because the Vietnam War was a proxy war between the U.S. and the USSR. We don't have a quote-unquote like big superpower that's backing the Taliban. The only time...
But didn't Russia at
we
one
don't.
time try to go into Afghanistan, and Afghanistan pushed them out?
Yeah,
France go into Afghanistan and pushed them out?
Russia did when they were the USSR. England did. The UK did before that, and we've been doing it since then.
So
yes,
why are
everyone's been fighting in the Middle East for
why do we keep
literally
doing
a
this?
century.
So why do we keep doing this instead of saying, "Hey, fix your country. We'll provide all the arms, the tanks, the airplanes, but you guys go and fight it. We're not sending our young kids over there anymore. You figure it out."
Our 3,000 troops in Afghanistan.
This is something.
But you also have to go in and train those troops as well. It's not, you can't just hand it's like basically if I handed like an inept individual the best weapons money can buy versus some sort of like a veteran that's basically like Rambo incarnate, I'd probably bet more on the Rambo individual than the inept person that probably has fired a gun.
But why don't they have that by now? I mean, how many years have we been there and they still have it? I mean, I just think that it's a waste of time.
This is something that's really important to keep in mind. This country has been run by a group like this since, the Taliban, right? For decades, right? Imagine, the Nazis took control over Germany in 1933 and they fell in 1945, right? A 12-year period from their takeover.
It's a country that's been ran by warlords. Yes.
Right. But like this country, like the kind of radicals that we were fighting against there, they've been seated for so long. It takes time to actually, change this, right? You don't go from having a near theocratic mindset in the population for really centuries and then just be like, well, we've been here for 15 years. They should be good, right? You don't undo that quickly.
And overall, we had almost no presence. It was literally just the fact that we had troops there that kept the Taliban from doing dumb shit. Which, as we've seen, since we pulled our troops, they continued to do dumb shit. We had literally all of the invasions and everything like that happened as soon as and directly following U.S. troops leaving.
So clearly it was an enormous presence. If it single-handedly kept the Taliban from taking over the country, it was an enormous presence.
Sure, our enormous presence of roughly about 3,000 troops.
So
a tiny minuscule amount of the U.S. military was there, and it kept them away. The same way that fuck, not to hard pivot, but the same way that Trump moving people out of Syria, out of northern Syria down to southern Syria was dumb as fuck, Biden moving people out of Afghanistan is even worse than that.
So just to keep this in mind, guys, like since 2015, like back, this is before Obama was on his way out, right? Like back when before he was a lame duck president, we've had 10,000 troops there. It was I think 2020. So I'm sorry, from 2015 to 2019, we had 10,000 troops there. It's in 2020, I think it was when it started to draw down. But the numbers are themselves like it's not just oh well we had 3,000 this is scaring them. The Taliban, well, at first our troops way freaking better than the Taliban, and we were providing air support, which is a critical factor here, but also there was the threat to the Taliban. If they start going crazy, we'll throw up more. We had a surge before, yes. And they thought we were willing to do it again until we just pulled out, right? And something really critical here, like I don't want this to be forgotten. The human rights gains, there are now about 15 million children in Afghanistan, and of course half of them are women, half of them are not going to have the basic human dignity that they could have expected as of a year ago, right?
Yep.
And the major loss, I know people say like why are our sons dying so that they can have it. There's literally more than 1 million new children in Afghanistan every year. In 2020, we lost 11 soldiers. I don't know, man, but honestly, it sounds a little bit weird to have to say, but if we lose 11 soldiers so that the 15 million children and the million, newborn children can have human dignity, I don't know, man. I think I'm okay with it. I'd be fine being one of them.
The last casualty in the United States was roughly 18 months ago for a U.S. citizen dying in Afghanistan.
I think even like taking those that million number and just let's say like hypothetically like half of that are women, there's like 500,000 women whose rights now are like literally in jeopardy.
It's not 500,000. At that point, it's what 15 million new kids. So it's 7.5 million.
No.
women.
I'm saying like 500,000 being birthed per year. Like if we were to like say pull the hypothetical and say like half and half.
And we're at the point now because again, or I guess for the first time, we can't trust a fucking word the Taliban says because we quote unquote had peace deals with the Taliban before we fucking pulled out.
But that's always
all
been
of those
case,
and all. Right. I agree. That's always been the case.
We
can't trust a word they say. So when we have the Taliban saying that they're going to allow women to go to college or allow girls to go to school, we shouldn't trust that at all. We should have no faith in that that's actually going to happen. Especially since not only have we had the Taliban renege on all of their fucking agreements through the peace treaty, they've also continued to do everything that they used to do, where as they roll from village to village and take over all of these towns, they're publicly executing all of their political dissidents.
My thing truly is I agree with you, but then we continue to have our political leaders make deals with them. So why are our political leaders still making deals with these people after they've continued to break agreement after agreement?
Wait, our political leaders aren't right now. Now. Joe Biden is saying he's going to fucking quote unquote like sanction the Taliban government because currently the Taliban controls Afghanistan. Kabul has already fallen. It was literally the last major city to be in that kind of group. The only area of the country that's still held is airports. So that way countries like the United States or the UK can pull out people who are still there. The country's fallen. The country is controlled by the Taliban.
Yeah, and by the way, it's
as we're saying, well, if you keep doing this, we're not going to give you any foreign aid or anything like that. Awesome. China is right in their back ear, right behind them, saying, "Hey, we're gonna give you all the foreign aid you need. We're right here for you, my friend." So our threats mean
Wait.
absolutely nothing because we pulled out any actual threat that we had there.
Truly, is it the job of the United States to liberate any country that doesn't have, like, I don't know, liberal ideas like we do?
Nope. Is it the job of the United
Yeah.
States to finish the job that they actually started?
Nope.
So
Well,
you can disagree.
It's
you can
it's
disagree.
not our job to be in Iraq in the first place, and
Wait,
it was a
no,
sunk cost
Afghanistan.
at the
I'm
time.
talking about
I'm
Afghanistan.
sorry.
Is
One,
that what I said?
yeah, no,
You said
you said Iraq.
Oh, my
One, I would deeply
1 second,
justify.
truly, please let American Legend was going. Let him finish, Ben.
bad. No, you can talk.
Wait, I thought he finished. Yeah.
No, I
so-
didn't think he had.
Oh shit.
I
No,
have
if
a-
you,
I
if
have
you
a-
hadn't
I have
finished,
a
you'd
take
finish.
note.
I'm sorry.
I have a. I mean, if I'll take your spot if you don't want it. I have a thing to say.
Yeah,
I
no.
mean, my
So
whole point
yeah,
has
the-
just been I
Mhm.
don't think we have any justification to actually be in these countries if they don't want us here. I mean, TC's already said that. And yeah, it's very clear to me that the Afghan government didn't even really care about its people. It willingly folded very, very easily. And just by the corruption that was rampant in the government, where they were taking bribes, I don't see how it would have ever been sustainable.
And see, American Legend and I have finally come to an agreement on one thing.
Yeah.
well,
Because we're
So the-
both agreed.
But when we're
there was
looking
a
at
question asked. There was a question asked just a little bit ago. It was like, is it the United States' job to like liberate countries? And to an extent, if I believed it were possible for the United States to actually, create the conditions such that Afghanistan can govern independently, I would say, yeah, we should do that. But I don't believe that the occupation would have ever led to such a circumstance. So then the question really becomes: is does the United States have the right to occupy another country indefinitely? And then that's a different question. Of course, there's no apology for the Taliban here. There's no getting around the fact that life is going to get worse in Afghanistan. But still, the answer is not
Wait.
permanent occupation.
Right.
So permanent occupation of a few thousand troops, literally on military bases, not actually doing military operations in the country. That's what we had. That is what we had currently at the end before we started the quote unquote pullout that Joe Biden painfully did. So what is the issue with the U.S. keeping a couple thousand troops to train whoever's going to be a part of the military, and keeping control of the military bases they have there?
Sure. So we tried that, and it clearly didn't work. That strategy failed. They had
I don't know-
300,000 in their military, and they folded.
No. What
when you look
what
at the
you're saying is
government
Yeah, they
actually
did.
false right now. What you're
No,
saying is
that's
actually
absolutely
false
the
right now.
case. How is it
We
false?
did that.
even if we
No,
wanted
wait.
to do what you were suggesting, truly,
how-
there are ways
so-
that do it that don't involve thousands of American troops in Afghanistan. If you still want to train, the Afghan military and help them, go ahead. Give us like 100 soldiers, and we'll train them here in the States.
So-
We provide food, housing for them for a year or two, give them all the training they need, then we send them back, and they can train their own troops. We do not have
So-
to have a single person in their
Well,
goddamn
here's-
country.
So you ask, how is that false? We had less than 4,000 troops in Afghanistan.
We don't need to have a single
These
troop.
wait. So these people weren't these troops weren't actually engaging in quote unquote like patrols or anything like this. This was
Doesn't matter.
training operations and stuff like that. We just had U.S. troops in the country, and
Doesn't
U.S.
matter.
troops.
We don't need them in the
Wait.
country to begin with. They don't want us there.
All right.
They
I'm
don't need us there. And
Wait, no,
when
they-
it comes to your point, and when it comes to actually training the military, we can do that on U.S. troops or in a neutral nation where
So they
they're
do.
okay with us being
So-
there.
no.
I
I'm
mean,
sorry. They do.
I know
So
people from
really quick, they
Afghanistan
do
who
want
do
they
not
do
want
want
us
us there.
Hold on.
No, I'm
So,
sorry. They do.
No,
truly,
that
I
is
think
not
the best
true.
way to dispel
Wait,
this
wait.
is to
I'm
go
I'm
and, like,
sorry. Look at polling between whether or not they would have the current government versus the Taliban, because those are the two options. I don't care whether or not they
That-
quote unquote. I don't care
There
whether
are
or not they
people
quote.
that
I don't
want
care.
us
I don't
there,
care.
Shirley.
I don't
They
care
don't
whether or
want
not
us
I
there.
I don't
hold on,
care.
hold on.
I
Like,
don't.
It
I don't
feels
care.
like if somebody's saying people don't want us there, like there's going to be a minute individual, like a minute. Like, if there's even a minute, it feels like this would like hold up. So like even if one person hates us, like what kind of argument are you dispelling here? A majority of people want us there. If a majority want us there, I don't see any reason why we shouldn't be there if they're
And
requesting us.
the easiest argument, even if you can look at the some polls that say that the majority of people in Afghanistan don't want U.S. troops there, the majority of people don't want the Taliban controlling the country. And the only way that happens, the only way the Taliban doesn't control the country is with the United States there.
But if the majority of
And a
people
larger
don't want us there, then we shouldn't be there.
a
We
larger
should let
group
them fight against the Taliban if they
wait,
don't want
why?
the Taliban.
Why should we?
Because they don't want us there.
Yeah, and they don't want the Taliban.
But
And
then
the only
if
and
they
the
don't
only
want
way
the
the only way they don't have the Taliban in charge of their country, or Al Qaeda or whoever you want to fucking phrase it as, the only way that they don't have this group in charge of their country is if the U.S. is there.
But there's a huge
And more
disconnect,
people-
though, truly, because
and-
if a lot
Sure.
of people there in the polling say, we don't want America, we want you gone,
But you can't.
then
you
it's
can't
up to
point-
them to fight against the Taliban, not
I
up
would
to us
draw-
if
So
they
you
don't
can't
want
you
us
can't
there.
you can't point towards polling if we both agree that the only way that Al Qaeda doesn't take charge of Afghanistan
But-
is with U.S. troops there, and more people don't want Al Qaeda in charge than the people who don't want the U.S. there.
I just, the polling has been all over the place. I mean, first you hear polling that they want, then they don't. I've talked to people from Afghanistan that don't want us there.
Wait, so why
Yeah,
are we
they don't
bringing
want
up
the
polling?
Taliban.
Why are we
Yeah.
bringing up
But-
polling
well,
if you don't want to
we keep
actually look
going
at the
back and
numbers?
forth- We keep going back and forth on the polling. I mean, it seems that the polling changes. But if they don't want the U.S. there, then they need to figure out how they're going to stop the Taliban.
So
But
real
it's in
quick,
it's not only that, it's in the U.S.'s best interest to not have the Taliban control the country of Afghanistan.
But it shouldn't be what is up to our interest. It should be what the Afghanistan government.
Wait, so then
wants.
what? So then what is the actual argument? So the people of Afghanistan don't want the Taliban in charge of their country. Cool. The only way to do that is by the U.S. being there, as we've fucking seen. Because when the U.S. leaves, the Taliban takes... Wait, I'm finishing. So, as we've seen, when the U.S. leaves, the Taliban takes control of the country. So, obviously, as most people know, that when the U.S. leaves, the Taliban can beat the Afghan military. So, but more people didn't want the Taliban in charge than the amount of people who wanted the U.S. to not be there. So which poll should we look at? Because, as we know, again, and has been reinforced by what has actually happened, when the U.S. leaves, the Taliban takes control. And the majority of the people of Afghanistan didn't want the Taliban to take control. So when you say, well, people didn't want the U.S. there, it's like, okay, I can agree with that. People don't want the U.S. there. Awesome.
So then,
People don't want the
TC, go ahead.
Taliban in charge more
go ahead.
than they
Ulysses.
don't want the U.S. to be in charge.
Thank you, TC. Yeah, truly, I just need you to resolve a little contradiction for me because you're saying two things that to me appear to be in conflict. You're saying
Sure.
first that the American military presence in Afghanistan is insignificant. Like
No, I'm
It was.
saying
It
it's I'm saying
No,
I'm
like-
saying it's
it wasn't very much of it.
yeah. So really quickly,
Okay, so
I'm saying wait really quickly. I'm saying it's insignificant in the case of the U.S. military. So for the U.S. military, a few thousand troops is absolutely nothing. For the people of Afghanistan, these few thousand
occupation.
troops meant literally everything.
and it's also not just the troops, right? Most of what's it called? People fighting for the United States are via contractors or backed by the United States indirectly, but are not actually American troops. That's
Sure.
most of them. And still,
So
this is and then but at the same time, this force that's relatively insignificant is also like the thing, right? No, but this is like the thing that was keeping the Taliban going, which does appear to be
Right.
true. So then the first thing was an occupation. So it's disanalogous from what was going on in Germany.
So again, I would agree that like to the level of U.S. troop deployment, the number of troops we had in Afghanistan was absolutely nothing. Now, when we're talking about what it meant to like the Afghani government and like how Afghanistan functioned because of our absolutely nothing deployment of troops, that's a completely different statement. That's why I'm saying that like the troops meant nothing, because we're talking about like a fraction of a percent that actually meant anything when it comes to U.S. troops in Afghanistan. 3,000 troops is literally nothing in compared to the U.S.
Why are we
military.
focusing on American troops though? Because that's like even if you're just counting bodies that fight for the United States, that's only like a quarter of them.
Because not only do we have this analogy in fucking Afghanistan, which we all watched happen over the last couple of weeks, we also have it in Syria. As soon as U.S. troops leave, everyone feels comfortable doing dumb things.
Well,
But
You-
again, I don't
actually-
think it should be up to the U.S.
well, it's interesting
You're-
that in Syria,
Why?
You're advocating for just neo-colonialism. I mentioned in the very beginning of this that this is just the logical conclusion of the failed policy of Wilsonianism. All this is just an extension of our policy, where all we would do is just go in and set up banana republics. The only difference between this and us when we were going in for banana republics is that instead of bananas, it's oil. I'm not saying that when we invaded Afghanistan initially, there wasn't some patriotic zeal in the form of 9/11. I'm not
Well,
saying
there's
we
not
didn't
much oil
go
in
in with good
Afghanistan.
interest. That's not the point. The point is that it's a form of neo-colonialism, Wilsonianism. That is exactly what this is. We should have, if this was just purely for the idea of avenging 9/11, we go in, we kill the current government, we leave. That you get me all. I'm all on board for that. But this long-term occupation is it's Neanderthalic. If you never read a history book, people have been fighting over this one chunk of land for almost all of history, and no one ever succeeds except for the people that live there. It's called the graveyard of empires, for Christ's sake. The British have done it.
Yeah.
The French have done it. The Russians
Yeah.
have done it. The Indians have done it. The Iranians have done it. The Chinese have done
Yeah.
it. The Mongols have done it. Everyone's fucking done it. It's cost billions of lives, trillions of dollars. Stop wasting time on this.
Yeah, it is known as the graveyard of empires.
So
yeah.
just out of curiosity, we're okay with the idea of pulling out and ceding all of the progress we made in Afghanistan. Wait, really quickly. I'm just gonna finish. So we're okay with pulling out and ceding all of
Yes.
the progress we made,
Yes.
i.e., like women or girls being able to go to school and stuff like that. We're okay with
Yes.
just yeeting that out of existence.
Yes.
I think
We
they
were
should
okay-
be able to immigrate to the U.S. if they want.
Sure, do that. But
Sorry,
no,
I
I'm
mean,
sorry.
Well, yeah, I mean,
all
well,
of the
trivially speaking. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, look, I agree with you that women's rights, women being able to go to school, those are all good things. But the reality is that even during the Second World War, we took the Jews in when we could, but we didn't get involved until the Japanese fucking bombed us. Okay,
Wait.
that's not our job. Okay, when the fucking Germans were killing their own people.
Wait, I
we
would make
didn't
the
like
argument
it,
we should have
we
been involved
disparaged it.
before that. I would make the argument we
maybe
should have
that's
been
the
involved.
case, but
Also, the
maybe
United
that's
States
the case.
turned Jews away.
I know we did some of that too, but that's not the point. Another example then, fine. The Soviet Union, they killed millions. Same thing can be said for China. They killed millions of their own people. We couldn't do anything, and so we didn't. We took in who we can, we helped where we can, but we didn't invade them.
The
Afghanistan
issue
Right, but
is-
this is
based
this
on
is the
that,
gap
the-
here.
Are we going
Like,
to go into Hong Kong next? Are we going
Texan,
to go into Cuba next?
This is what's silly here. You're saying there are these other examples where we couldn't do anything. Therefore, because in other cases where there were human atrocities going on, where there were horrible people, violating people's basic human dignity, we couldn't do anything. So in this case where we can do something super easily, we shouldn't. That doesn't follow. That makes no sense.
Hold on.
Should we go and invade half of Africa then? There's tons of human atrocities there. Should we go and invade Iran then?
No,
There's tons
really,
of human
really
atrocities
easily,
there.
really
Should we go
easily,
and invade
really easily,
basically all
really
of the Middle
easily.
East then?
That is a good question.
Really easily, we should keep 3,500 troops in Afghanistan, so
You're-
that way
you
it
didn't
doesn't
address
fall
my
to the
issue.
Taliban.
Yeah.
No, it does. It does. You bring this up like we can't do anything. This is an issue outside of our ability. It's been happening for the last 100 years, but we had it under control. We did.
No, not 100 years. Not 100 years. This has been a thing in recorded
1,000
history
years.
since
Awesome.
500 BCE, before Christ
Awesome.
existed.
Thousands of years. This is
Wait, what do you mean BCE, but then before Christ existed?
Yeah, BCE, before Christ existed.
Before
But
Common Era.
yeah,
Common
sure.
era defined by
sorry.
when Christ was born. Anyways,
Yeah. So awesome. We can make this argument that this area has been in like fucking warfare for the last fucking thousands of years. Why does that make it okay for us to go, cool, we fucked up?
Why
I'm
does it
wiping
make
my
it a
hands."
special case? You want to go defend human rights?
It doesn't
You wanna
make
go
it a
help people?
special case.
Absolutely. Go do it in Africa. Go do it in Asia.
It doesn't make it
in Europe.
It doesn't make it a special case. We're already there. Why should we say we're okay with it being worse than
Because
what
you're
we
falling
what we
for the
developed?
sunk cost fallacy. You think that if you just
It's
keep
not a
investing
sunk
money,
cost
eventually it'll.
fallacy.
Yes, it is. The
No,
government was
absolutely it is.
extremely corrupt. To get a government contract there, it required bribes 46.9% of the times and 79.3% of the time for plumbing requests. That required bribes.
Was the government in Afghanistan better than the government that existed before the United States got involved?
Maybe marginally. I mean,
Awesome.
yeah, in terms of women's rights, but again, it's not the U.S. job to go and liberate countries.
And,
Wait,
and even
wait,
if you
so-
do advocate for that, even
really
if you
quickly,
do want to
wait,
advocate for saying,
wait,
hey,
no,
let's
I'm
go
not.
save
I'm not.
people, there are much
Nope.
better, easier locations to do it at.
I'm not even-
Afghanistan is the worst
And there's
possible
better
location
ways to
start.
do it than boots
Okay.
on the ground. China's strategy has
Wait.
always been to invest in these countries.
I'm not
and
even
make diplomatic
arguing.
ties that way. Hold on, truly.
We
So
all-
if you
I mean,
want
this
to be,
is something that
if you want to be, so I'm going to go fast. The legend you go. If you want to be Mr. America World Police, that's fine. If you want to advocate for that, that's a debate we have in our own country. Fine, do that, but do it in a way that makes fucking sense. If you think we can do it in Morocco, we can do it in Libya, we can do it in Egypt, we can do it in Ethiopia, Somalia. Choose your country. We can do it. They are absolutely have abysmal women's rights issues there. Let's go save people there if you want to go save people. Let's not start in the country that has collapsed hundreds of empires.
Why?
Right.
So just,
Wait, but the U.S. isn't trying to conquer Afghanistan. The reason so many empires have collapsed in Afghanistan is because they try to occupy it and annex it and conquer it, make it part of their empire. That's not what the U.S. is doing.
What have we done
I
other
feel
than
like-
occupy it?
Really, because without us occupying it, it seems to go to shit very
Originally,
quickly.
We
Well, you
weren't.
tried
We
it,
weren't
but
occupying
you-
it.
Yeah.
None
like-
of what we were doing was
It's-
occupying
Yes, it was.
Afghanistan.
Yes,
okay,
that is-
without us, it
Okay,
was
wait,
all
I'm
though.
sorry. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Are we considering a few thousand troops as occupying?
why do you keep saying
we-
a
no,
few
hold on,
thousand
truly,
troops?
truly,
This was
hold
not
on,
the
hold on,
extent of the
hold on.
presence.
Especially the
Hold on,
amount of
hold on.
troop number
This was
that
not
was
the
there.
extent of the
Truly.
presence of the United States.
Truly, you yourself said that those 3,000 troops, they were sitting there and wait. And the reason that the Taliban didn't attack, even though they might have been able to overwhelm those 3,000, was because of the threat of a surge. That surge
Yep.
would mean more U.S. casualties. It would mean more fighting, more death, more injuries. We already lost, 2,300 U.S. servicemen and 20,000 more
Yep.
were injured.
But
I'm
not
even
a
sure if
single
that
one in the
includes
last
PTSD.
18 months. Not a single one
Yeah,
in the
wait,
last
this
18
is-
months.
wait,
Again,
this
if
is-
there was another surge, there would be even more.
Right,
And then
but
we wouldn't
so-
be talking about there was one in the last 18 months. It would be, there were 5 today. Or
right? Yeah,
something
but
like that. Like,
Really?
This is you're talking about a hypothetical, the threat of which prevents the very thing, right? We talk about the threat of nuclear war, which the threat that if you nuke us, we're going to nuke you, right? Well, what's the human cost if a nuke happens, right? No. The whole threat that will fucking nuke you prevents us from having to nuke you, right? And so, it's the same thing here. The threat of the surge for 2 years kept them at bay. They weren't doing anything. They weren't making advances. Earlier this year, just this year,
they
we
were
actually
growing
covered
their numbers. They were growing their numbers.
we had a podcast
I'm gonna-
earlier this year. The Taliban controlled roughly 5% of the country, and if you adjust by population control, just this year, they actually controlled by about 1% of the population of the country, right? They went from the the government that was there controlling 99% of the people, right? To now they're out, right? And like this is another thing we got to address here. This is not a sunk cost fallacy, right? Sunk cost fallacy is if we say, hey, we've already had hundreds, that we've already spent hundreds of billions of dollars, therefore we have to spend more. That would be a sunk cost fallacy. But what we're talking about here is saying, hey, we had 3,000 troops here, and these 3,000
20,000.
troops with no, this year we had 3,000.
If you include the contractors, which I don't know why you wouldn't.
No, contractors are not soldiers. Contractors are usually, we're talking about builders, right? They
Well,
most
no,
of them are
you
not
might also be
military.
Okay,
about
so maybe
PMC.
10,000, maybe 15,000.
No, really 3,000 troops. So we had 3,000
3,000.
troops there, and these 3,000 troops were enough to keep them at bay, and the actual cost that we had, like, going on, were very small. This isn't a sunk cost fallacy. What we're saying here is the whatever 10, 20 billion a year we were looking to spend in 2021 in the 3,000 troops there with zero deaths. You know what? Keeping that there, keeping that whatever 10 billion it costs a year, is worth the 6.5 million Afghani, little girls having human dignity.
So let's actually take. I'm gonna do two call outs to the chat because they have been commenting on this. One is from Trevin123, and he says the reason there was none in the last 18 months, no deaths, he means, in the last 18 months is because of the ceasefire agreement we had with them. And then I also want to quote some fat coconut, and he says that 40,000 troops have died of suicide since 2001. Just food for thought there.
That's not true.
Back to addressing your, I'm not quoting. I'm not saying that's exactly correct. That I was just quoting from the chat. I wanted them to be involved.
All right, but we haven't had 40,000 troops die, man.
That's suicide.
No, from suicide. But even that was setting that to the side. I did want to actually address what you said, Tim. Again, I'm not disagreeing with you in the sense of, okay, let's help people, right? My whole argument was, if you want to help people, let's do it efficiently. Let's do it effectively. This is clearly not the place to start. If we want to be American World Police, which it sounds like you and Truly are advocating for, and that's noble. It's very noble. If you want to be America World Police, and that's a noble goal, let's start in a country that might actually have a chance of us helping it successfully. Not where we're going to sit around for 20 years, making tiny incremental changes in the hope that there's some major, social change. You're talking about a place that is the absolute worst starting point.
You understand that
history.
You understand that?
I'd like to take this one, man. So,
yeah.
This is not. We're not talking about being world police. You keep trying to take this in a vacuum, as if there's no context, right? As if there was no 9/11, there was no fucking Saddam. I'm not Saddam shit. There was no Osama. There's a reason why I went in there, because Osama was backed by their government and they were protecting him, right?
And I agree with you.
And
you know
what?
If we came in,
please,
killed the government and left, I would have been okay.
So the point here was that we were trying to get Osama. He was being protected by this government. So you know what? We removed this government, which was supporting a terror attack on our fucking nation, right? And so what we should do is remove that government. And what you're saying is, this government was supported, terror attack on our nation. Which, if you want to talk about cost, the literal hundreds of billions of dollars lost because of that attack, if you want to go at the money, right? Or the lives lost, which we've lost way more in 9/11 alone than we had. We didn't lose even nearly that many troops in Afghanistan. Not even close, right? And you're basically saying, just go in, make sure we kill Osama, and then wash our hands of it, Taliban can go back into control?
And overall, money is absolutely nothing in this. We're talking about we've spent what, maybe almost not even all the way there. We've spent almost $1 trillion on the war in Afghanistan over 20 years. So we're talking about what, $50 billion a year?
Is that including
This
all
doesn't. Yes, that's including literally all of the military budget.
No, I was gonna
But-
say, is that including all of the contracts that we gave out to
Yep.
different private industries and whatnot to research and develop new ways to blow shit up?
Well, research and develop new ways to blow
that would
shit
all fall
up
under the
isn't.
military budget.
But no, wait.
Well,
or no?
Research and development on new ways to blow shit up that
That's
doesn't
not
fall under
necessarily
like
what
what we're
Afghanistan.
spending on Afghanistan.
Okay.
Wait, are
Does that all fall
are
under
you
military
kidding me?
budget?
Because I will easily walk you through this.
Seriously,
Okay. You know,
I
one of
asked
the things
a
is
question that I was just expecting a yes or no, but I guess if you want to go off on the fact that I said blow shit up, because
it's just at least to me, it's
industrial complex. But
No, it's just the fact that I don't care. The
Well,
the
so
overall
you
the
don't
overall
care.
the
So
overall
hold on.
money.
that's important
the
to
money-
remember that taxpayer
so
money went to
really
develop
quickly.
new missiles,
Yep.
new planes,
Yeah.
all that
That's
was
also-
in
Yeah,
support of
and none of
Afghanistan.
that
That's-
has to do with the fact that we were in Afghanistan.
the
No, it
taxpayer
does.
money is a
No,
problem
no, I'm
because we have
I'm sorry, we would
infrastructure
have
here
done
that
that
is falling
regardless.
apart. So
this
when are we
idea
going
of-
to fix the
we-
infrastructure here?
Hold on. I have to point this out.
tangentially related
Okay,
to
one-
the war in Afghanistan, and attributing that directly to the war in Afghanistan is very weird to me. It's like, oh well, shit. By that
The
metric,
US
is like the $2 trillion that you spent on the F-35.
Wait, hold on. Do you think
money
we
you spent on
developed?
Afghanistan is
Hold on. Do you think we developed
second.
drone technology just because we were like, yeah, you know what? Fuck it. Let's attach some missiles to drones.
No,
But the
really
primary
quickly,
reason
for fun?
wasn't necessarily
Really
Afghanistan.
quickly,
We
I
did that
have
before
an
the war in the Middle
interesting
East.
question to ask you back. Do you think we developed drone technology to be able to drop missiles out of drones because of the war we were fighting in Afghanistan?
Yeah, I think that was partially why that
N-
technology has become so prominent in our military. I
Okay.
absolutely believe that. I don't know how you can say that it's not.
Well, I would just point out that the vast majority of drone strikes we've done were not in Afghanistan.
I mean,
We've
that's
done
fine.
far
It was
more
all part of the war in the Middle East.
So then, not Afghanistan.
I mean, sure, I kind of view the entire conflict as all part of the same because we're going to say that 9/11 was the reason we were in Iraq and 9/11 is the reason we were in Afghanistan.
9/11
But
is not the
you
reason we were
don't
right.
take the smaller item, say it's a part of the larger group, and then say therefore anything that's part of the larger group is part of the smaller item, right? We don't say Maine is part of America, so therefore America is part of Maine, right?
The justification for all of these wars has been 9/11. I've not heard any other justification other than 9/11.
Wait, no,
I
no,
don't think-
wait, no. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I don't think I've heard a single argument against actually going in, blowing the screw heads up that actually mess with our country. I don't think I've heard anyone say they were opposed to the initial invasion of Afghanistan. I think everyone here, I think even the people that are pro, Tim, truly, I think even you guys would say that the way we at least handled the occupation, and it is an occupation, was bad. Even if you disagree with us leaving,
No,
the way
in
we handled
general,
the
Wait, wait, wait.
occupation
Hold
was
on.
poor.
Until a few years
Wait.
ago, the occupation of Afghanistan was actually fan-fucking-tastic.
Yeah, we
and that's why we pulled out now when we did, 'cause we-
literally developed a democracy in in an area that's never had that.
Yeah,
Like-
and
like,
that's
no,
awesome,
I'm-
but then it
I'm sorry.
collapsed, and it's not our job to fix
Wait,
it now.
why
We don't
did
need
it
to go
collapse?
back in.
Why did it collapse?
Because the president fled, and the Afghani
Because we left.
Afghanistan.
No, because we left. Because
It's not
we
our
left.
job to stay there.
If
for
we
the rest
left
of
Germany
Afghanistan
our-
for life.
tomorrow morning, Germany would not collapse. If we left all of Western Europe tomorrow,
oh,
Europe
Hold
would
on,
not
hold on,
collapse.
hold on.
maybe
You're talking about 20 years versus
deep.
100 years of like helping them stabilize.
Well,
like,
no,
helping
I
them
think
stabilize
that's a
through the
fair
Cold
point.
War.
I think that's a fair point because
Even
earlier
then-
he was talking about Americans being in Germany and trying to use
Oh,
that
yeah.
as justification for why we're in Afghanistan.
Also,
I wasn't
something-
using. I wasn't
Yeah,
using it as
five
justification.
times
I was.
longer here.
I was drawing an equation between the two. But
Something
yeah,
wait,
that's really important to compare
the
here.
government being
The-
stable
Sorry, go ahead.
isn't the only reason
No,
why
no,
we support the
no,
US.
I'm talking
Being
about
in
all of
Afghanistan-
Europe.
Wait, hold on. Let me second. The Afghanistan government being stable and having control over Afghanistan isn't the only reason we support it. We also don't want China to become to expand its foreign influence and basically turn Afghanistan into a puppet state. Either China or Pakistan, who knows, one of the two. If the US withdrew from Germany, for example, and let's say dissolved NATO, they would immediately kowtow into more of a Russian zone of influence. I take issue with this idea that the only reason that we're in the U.S. is in other countries is because it's to keep them stable, right? I don't like. I don't think that's the only reason, and I don't think it's the only. We should be in other countries.
No,
I
and
just-
we
Well,
want
just
we
point
want
out an
them.
important fact, though. Everyone
Yeah.
in our government, including Biden, felt that the pullout that the Afghanistan government was equipped and ready to fight the Taliban if they did try and invade. So, by all metrics, we were under the impression that the Afghanistan government was ready for us to pull out and was ready to fight the Taliban on their own.
I
I'm
don't think
sorry.
do that.
I'm really sorry. I'm not even part of. I don't have all of the wonderful fucking security clearances that the president does. But even when Trump or Biden was talking about fucking pulling out of Afghanistan, I've been making the argument that this is dumb as fuck the entire time.
So
Just
I just have a
to-
quick.
Let TC talk.
Yeah.
It's been a few
Oh,
minutes for her.
Yeah.
No, I was just gonna say that it's 11. We've been going for an hour, and usually Tim likes to do a public service announcement. So that's all.
Yeah, guys,
No.
if you guys are enjoying this, please do check us out on Twitch. If you guys are on it's twitch.tv/bluepolitics. We do this a few times a week, pretty much every day. And yeah, everyone on Twitch, if you guys aren't from the Discord, do check out the Discord, discord.gg/bluepolitics. Something
Okay.
I want to say about the comparisons here, to Germany. The population of Afghanistan today is 40 million. Germany at the end of the war, I believe, was about 60 million, right? So it's roughly, it's not the same, but it's roughly comparable populations. And for most of the time we've been in Afghanistan, it was 20 years, right? For 15 out of the 20 years, we had less than 40,000 troops there. Most years, we had about 10, 20,000 or so troops. And in Germany after the war, for a decade later, we had hundreds of thousands of troops. Also, the French had hundreds of thousands of troops. Also, the British had hundreds of thousands of troops. Also, the Soviets had millions of fucking troops in Germany, right? The idea
You
that,
know
like,
that's
we've,
different. You
if you
know
want to
that's
compare this I'm sorry, I know that's what?
You know that's different. There's a
I
big difference.
do know that's
between
different,
the
but you were trying
cold
to
goddamn war and
Wait,
Afghanistan.
Why?
The reason why I bring this up, Texan, is you were saying if we pulled out of Germany today, we know they'd be fine, right? But also, we've been in Germany for nearly a century, and after the war, we had not some token force of 20,000 or 3,000 troops there, right?
Fine,
we had
hundreds
of
further
thousands.
east. Move further east then. Talk about Poland. We have a government. We have a military influence in Poland. If we suddenly pulled out of Poland, Poland wouldn't collapse. They hate the Russians.
Really interesting.
They absolutely hate the Russians. And so if we pulled out of Poland, Poland would still be stable. They still hate the Russians.
Out of curiosity, why are we moving to Poland?
Oh
Yeah, I don't
no!
know why
Well,
he's
he
talking
made the
about
point.
that.
He
I
made
have
the
a
point.
quick
He made the
question.
point of
I'm
Germany.
just
If you don't want to
asking.
talk about Germany,
Texan,
if you don't want to talk about
you know
Wait,
what?
Germany,
no, I
This is-
do. I
this is-
do want to talk about Germany.
Did we ever occupy Poland, Texan?
no, but we do have a significant
Okay.
military presence there.
So if we end the occupation that never happened, then they'd be fine. But the point is, we never occupied them. We never
They went from
invaded
being
them, right?
under the occupation of Russia to basically us.
No, we never
Wait,
occupied them.
Wait. Hold on. So, to get this straight, the definition of occupy is wherever troop presence are, necessarily.
Is that the definition we're working with? That's not.
No,
normally
no,
what we go
because
with.
that's how like I'm hearing Texans say it. Like whenever we have troops in
Because
Germany,
then we
have troops in Poland.
still occupy Germany as the United States.
Well, that
Good
sounds to me like
God.
that's y'all what advocating.
No,
I
it's
think
not.
your definition of occupy is so watered down, it's almost next to useless at this point.
Okay, then let's not use it that way. I agree with you that we
that's
are occupying Afghanistan and that we are not occupying Germany, but I wasn't the one that brought up Germany from the very get-go.
Wait, you did. You said if we left Germany.
No,
they'd
it's
be
fine. I did.
He did.
It was truly.
Truly did.
He did.
I'm not the one that brought it up.
I brought up Germany originally, mostly because I was talking about how we handled Germany after World War II compared to how we're handling these countries in the Middle East
Right. I have a
right
quick
now.
question. I just have a quick question. This goes, okay, so there's general agreement that either for being in Afghanistan for 20 years in the first place, or for leaving, or for whatever other reason, the United States in conjunction with other countries, maybe has greatly wronged Afghanistan and its people. This is just something that's not been brought up until now. What about refugees? What's our policy for this? Because I think naturally we should take an unlimited amount of refugees from Afghanistan.
Yeah, we should definitely allow them into our country. Since we're no longer occupying Afghanistan, I think the Taliban have no reason to try and sneak forces into the U.S., but I think we should still vet them. Certainly the interpreters and the people that, under the Trump administration, they gave less visas to, our informants, all of them should absolutely be given a path to citizenship in the United States.
Does anyone have a contention with Because
No,
I'm
no.
saying unlimited, that's pretty extreme, right?
I would agree.
I
would
don't think it
agree.
should be unlimited, but I think
As long as they live through the public beheading of people who are quote unquote disagreeing with the Taliban, then yeah, sure. As long as they live through that, we should be backing them.
Yeah, because if at least we're going to be of course the consequence of American actions is this much violence, it's only fair that we don't prevent them from taking advantage of our economic prosperity, right?
Right, and as long as we have some semblance of people who are being beheaded for backing us is not okay, then yeah, sure. we should have
anyone.
I don't think anyone here is actually going to say we shouldn't help those that aided us.
I don't think that anybody here is that heartless per se.
How many refugees do you think are even going to try to leave?
I guess
Do
it's
you think
dependent.
people are going to want to leave?
There was a massive traffic jam trying to get out. There's actually a lot of people trying to leave right now.
It's also time dependent as well.
I would imagine so. I would imagine so.
So there's two problems.
The United States has fucked over that country. So overall, yeah, I would imagine there's a lot of people.
But that's the U.S.
is not admit that we shouldn't be in anymore.
I think one thing that isn't being talked about
the U.S. Army
is a lot of people there don't want to leave their homes. They are happy there. I'm not saying that they wouldn't want to go to necessarily another country, but a lot of people, I think people forget that their homes are there. They've been born there. They do love their country, and they don't like that it's being torn apart, and that some of them do feel like they have been forced to leave, because of certain circumstances with the Taliban, that they've been forced to come to the United States.
Right.
Well, yeah, it sucks that they became refugees in the first place, but
so TC, you agree that this group of people doesn't want to be under Taliban rule, right?
Yeah, but I've also so I knew a couple people from Afghanistan actually in college, and they were very contrary in that they hated the Taliban, but they hated the U.S. and they didn't want us there, and they didn't want the Taliban there.
But if they had to choose between those two, who would they choose?
Yeah, I think that's
usually it's
roughly political. Politically, that's roughly the general take is that they don't want either the Taliban or the United States in charge of the country. But in the end, all the polls we have right now point towards they'd much rather have the U.S. there than the Taliban actually in charge.
To say this, but
they didn't want the U.S. there.
It is literally a better of two evils here. Do they prefer the U.S. over the Taliban? Yes, they do.
I guess so long as they recognize they're both evil.
Some don't. They think that the U.S. is too powerful, and they rather
fight the
Taliban.
I assume most
I'm sure some people in the United States don't like Jews here, but we don't care about what some people want.
And
I care about what the majority wants.
Is a lot of them.
Even if the majority didn't like Jews, I would also have a problem with that.
Also, a lot of them are Muslim. And so while they don't agree with the extreme measures of the Taliban, they do consider them, having the same culture and the same religion as them, which in the United States, they look at that as more decadent.
But again, the majority of people in Afghanistan don't want the Taliban to be in charge of the country.
So this is
for good reason. The Taliban is really bad.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm not saying they're not.
In all defense, I feel really justified backing the people who don't want acid thrown in girls' face for going to school. Like I
just
feel
saying this
real
has been
comfortable
going
backing
on
that.
Can I
for a
jump in on this
long
one?
time.
So one of the things I kind of heard here is like some people like what is quantify it for me. What number of people is significant enough that we should necessarily live or listen to them? TC in your mind?
If you could get a good poll, and if the majority of people in that country don't want us there, then we should leave. So if they have, 51 to 49, then, hey, we get out.
And just to go to Bond,
So,
to be honest, I'm not saying
just-
TC feels this way, but I absolutely do. I don't care if they want us there or not. I'm sorry, but even if the majority do, and I'm not trying to pull away on your point, TC, but even if they do want us there, even if they do, we have been there now for 20 years, made minimal strides in changing the actual people of that country. I'm not saying that their GDP hasn't gone up, because
Minimal.
absolutely it has.
Interesting.
We're there. But the actual hearts and minds of the country, the actual
So-
steps towards making them a democracy.
So
That
before
factuality is not going to be the case.
Can I jump in?
So before I tell you how the quote unquote minimal effect that we've had is absolutely wrong. The fact that we've had actual impact on like girls being able to go to school, we've had actual impact on like people not being fucking stoned to death
Maybe I should
for the
explain my
clothes
point.
they wear. Like what you consider minimal is very fucking important because we're talking
maybe I should restructure my point.
because we're talking about life and death for a lot of these fucking people.
Let me explain
When we're
what I mean
talking
by
about
that.
these minimal fucking changes.
Let me
Okay, hold
explain
on,
what I
hold
mean
on.
by
I
that.
think Ulysses wants to make a point.
Thank
He
God
hasn't
somebody
really
said my
talked.
name correctly. I mean, one of like these insane things that I keep on hearing is like minimal. And yes, Texan, you can explain this, but like when I'm hearing minimal, like change doesn't happen at the snap of a finger. Change does not happen
Absolutely.
in like a year, 5 years, 10 years. Things can we can like win a war in like a snap of a second if we were to nuke the damn country, and maybe even then they might not even surrender. But the problem here is we're talking about incremental change that even the United States itself, the kingpin of democracy, change doesn't happen here in like months or years or decades. It happens
Absolutely.
very slowly. So we can't expect one country to like snap its fingers and become the democracy of our dreams.
I
Ulysses,
agree.
you're short selling the fuck out of this. We moved from the idea of girls going to school means you get acid thrown in your face.
It doesn't
To
matter
girls
if
can
you have
actually go to
person
fucking
with a load of
school.
guns in
Like
your face.
we have moved so far.
No. I'm saying if I were to
progressing.
hold to his position here, it seems so ridiculous to me that somebody's saying like this is minimal. But this is to the people on the ground, this is very important to them, and these are great strides. But like if somebody's saying this is minimal,
I'm not saying that stuff didn't happen.
Well, no, but minimal.
No, you're
like,
saying
things
it's
don't
minimal.
happen
No, you're
easily.
saying it's minimal.
Okay, so
You're literally
let me actually
minimizing the
explain my
situation.
point. Let me actually explain my point, just so we're playing on the same page here. What I mean by that is you haven't actually won over the hearts and minds. Yeah, I agree. Girls are going to be able to go to school. People are being punished for throwing acid at women. I'm
Really
not saying it's not happening.
why?
But you're
Wait,
not actually
why?
changing the hearts and minds of the people of the country.
Why?
After the Civil War was won by the North, the fucking South had to be occupied for years during Reconstruction. And even then you didn't actually see a full reformation of the people in there for another 50, 60 years.
Sure.
We don't have time, money, or resources for that.
Why are people getting in trouble for throwing acid in the face of girls for going to school?
Because there's a man that is funded by the American government with a gun to their head.
Is that a bad thing? Wait, is that a bad thing?
It doesn't actually solve the problem. It doesn't solve the problem.
Why? How so?
Because there needs to be a cultural shift, and we can't force a cultural shift.
All you
are
is just the asshole coming in with your ideas,
so really
your beliefs,
quickly,
your points of view, and oppressing them.
So when we make it functionally for this country, that they have to allow girls to go to school. Are we just quote unquote the asshole who's making
Yes, you
girls
are.
be allowed
You're
to go
just
to
an
school.
oppressor. You are just a colonial douchebag.
According to who?
The people in the country that
Nope.
don't
Yeah.
want
The
what
people
Because
you're
the
of the
people, no,
country.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. The people in the country disagree with you on this
That's
We've
so-
literally gone
so-
over this
so-
fully.
so
You're
truly,
not
we've
winning
gone
hearts
over
and
this.
minds.
There are people in Afghanistan that do
There are people
not
who
want
disagree. Sure,
the U.S. there.
I
Just
don't
because
care.
you don't,
Yes,
just
and they're-
because you don't want,
Wait. I'm
just
sorry.
because
I
you don't want
don't
the
care.
Taliban there does not mean you want the U.S. there.
Wait, I don't
It's
care.
great that you
I
don't,
don't
care.
care.
It's
Yep.
but that doesn't mean anything. Like,
Wait, why should I care about the small group that actually doesn't have any power
can
and
you
that
show
has
me
no
like a poll of Afghani people?
that has no majority in the country? Why should I
Can
care
you-
about their opinions?
I don't
Can
think
you
that's
show me a
necessary.
poll on this data that they're a minority?
Yes.
I'm trying to find a poll. I can't really find a poll.
Yeah, I've been looking for one for a while now, and I found nothing.
Let's be general.
I've seen the
Let's
polls
be
go
general.
up and down. I've seen them
Let's
go,
be general, and
both ways.
let's be
The
general
girls
and
go to
say that
school.
okay, most people are politically apathetic. Let's be general and say most people are politically apathetic, at least to a margin, similar to how they are in the United States. Okay, people might have their own personal views on things, but aren't going to overall get involved in politics. They don't care so much who's in charge of the country. They just want to make sure their values are being represented appropriately, right? And rather, if you support the American way of life, then perhaps you do feel that this is the right way of doing things. But in the event that you don't, which our way of life is dramatically different than theirs, and so in the event that you do support it, you're in a small minority. But even if that's not the case, let's say you don't have any kids and you live out in the country, you don't care, right? Just because you are not supportive of the Taliban does not mean you like the United States. And from the U.S. perspective, look, unless we are going to go in and make them a colonial state like we did the Philippines, which we haven't really committed haven't really committed to that. Unless we're going to go in and make them a colonial state, then what are we really doing here?
We don't have to. We don't have to make them a colonial state. We don't have to do this like soft core like
Then
U.S.
all we've done
imperialism.
is put in puppets. All we've done is say, okay, we're going to choose you because we like your political
Sure,
ideas. We're going to choose you because we like
if,
your political ideas, and that's not actually representative of the country. They're representative of our beliefs.
But
you want
there
to make
is a problem, truly.
if you want to make this argument, then sure. But most people in Afghanistan agree with the government that's going on right now, which includes the idea of allowing women or girls to go to school.
I'm not saying that they don't. The problem again comes down to is if we pull out and all that immediately is just wiped out by the Taliban, how much of a difference in ideas are we really influencing?
Wait, no, the
if
back
those
end is
aren't
why should we have pulled out?
because it's not our
because
job.
it's
No, it's
how
not our
long are you
job,
going to stay
but
there?
even but what's that saying? What the actions that have actually like physically occurred? What this actually says, at least to me, this is an opinion, obviously. But what this actually says to me is that the government that was set up and backed by the U.S. military was not popularly supported enough by the people of Afghanistan to actually withstand the Taliban. And like you said,
The idea is they weren't
the
strong
Taliban
enough.
was
They weren't
very
strong enough.
weak, very ineffectual before we left. What this tells
No,
me is that a weak and
I
effectual
literally
group of
never said that.
individuals was able to take over their country.
Truly, a
Yeah,
government.
so I
is
literally
supposed
never
to be
said that. The Taliban is very effective and very good at what they do. I never made the argument that they weren't. So the idea of like, well, we just pulled out because that's what the people wanted. Overall, the people want non-Taliban control. How do you
keep
get
saying this,
non-Tal?
but
Yeah.
what poll do you have to support this? You can't keep leaning on this because I've looked and I can't find any poll that says one way or the other that I'm
And
sorry, that the Afghani
And-
people support
and
it.
you
even-
keep
even if there
saying
was-
that,
even
but
if
they
there was-
still hate the United States. A lot of them hate the United States. They don't want us there.
Yeah, and
I
I
don't-
think
Even if there was,
I
you're
don't
not
care.
considering the
Wait,
people of the
wait.
United
And then
States.
the other thing
So
you
really
don't
quickly,
look at,
really
truly, hold
quickly,
on one second. The other thing
that's
you're not
nice and
looking at
easy.
is
I
if they
don't care.
hate the U.S., then they're going to join with the Taliban in order to get rid of us, which some of them have done.
So
I don't
I mean,
care.
that's
I
other.
don't.
Wait.
Take
Hold
You
it
on.
one
shouldn't care
step
because that's
further.
why the
have-
Taliban is in power.
I have to ask. So, could we? I feel like I could carry this argument over to ISIS because, like, some portion of the country or some countries would like support ISIS. Does that mean we should have pulled out of like fighting ISIS as well?
But again, I don't know what percentage supports
I
the
mean,
Taliban,
ISIS-
what percentage supports the Afghani government, which percentage likes having the U.S. Like, I can't find any polling data on this.
So,
So I don't know how we can just like project that because we are in favor of, the U.S. being
No,
withdrawal or the
not we,
Afghan.
not we. He is in favor. The population of the United States. Do we have consensus on this? No, it is a very heavily divisive issue, and most people in the United States actually are in favor of us leaving Afghanistan. Maybe
Right.
Yeah,
not
this is
necessarily in the
actually
way that has recently
fundamentally-
occurred, but we are opposed
it
to being
is-
in Afghanistan.
It is kind of fundamentally weird to talk about, like, when we're talking about, like, should we leave Afghanistan? Should we stay in Afghanistan? It's really weird to say, like, we, because, like, I am not a general in the United States military, and, like, no one else here is. And we're, like, for example, it was,
And-
no, like, did
know
any
this,
of you, like, for example, here's something that I'm sure
I wanna
basically no one
respond to this.
supported. Okay, go ahead, right away.
Well, I was
And-
just going to say
and-
the government is representative of the people. That's true in the United States, and it's going to be true in Afghanistan. You cannot force any group of people to believe one way or the other. It's just not going to work. So, like the Afghanistan government, the only way it was going to be successful is if it was representative of the people inside the country, and the people in the country wanted that type of government. If they're not willing to fight for it right now, while the Taliban is rolling them over after they've had training from U.S. forces. They've had a massive military that's been trained by U.S.
I'm
I don't
sorry.
know what
Wait,
to
hold
do.
on.
So, I do actually. Again, real quick, if you guys are enjoying this, do follow us on twitch.tv/bluepolitics. We do this most every night of the week. I did find a poll. I posted it in the Twitch chat. It doesn't, unfortunately. It's a great data mine. 250 pages. So much good information. They somehow didn't ask the Afghanis what they thought about U.S. withdrawal, but two things in it that I did find were pretty important. I'm going to go ahead and for everyone on the stream, I'm going to make this something you see on the stream. This is 2019 that this survey was done. Nearly 9 out of 10 Afghanis said that protecting women's rights is important. So, the support for women's rights in Afghanistan is clearly there. I think that's loosely indicative of what they think about the Taliban, but obviously it's just a proxy. And then something I also thought was pretty important. Only 1 out of 2 Afghanis thought that their military could provide security without foreign assistance. Like the idea that we were ready, or that the Afghanis were ready to take this on without our help, is to me just kind of silly. And the number one thing that still kills me about this is we didn't defeat the Taliban. Like, can you guys imagine leaving Germany, like ending the occupation of Germany, while there were still 100,000 SS troops that were, organized and fighting? Like, we would never do this anywhere else, right? Like, it just
we
boggles
kind
my
of
mind
did.
that we never finished the job of defeating the Taliban. That's the whole point. The whole thing.
How do we go about doing that?
Okay, 1 second. Trev in Twitch wanted to ask a question. Hopefully I get this whole thing correct. 300,000 Army, a whole Air Force, still getting bombs from the U.S. Air Force. They weren't equipped enough. There are cases of the security forces literally not fighting and instead evacuating. I don't see much of a moral drive to fight the Taliban from what we've seen in the past month.
They didn't have. So this is another thing I want to correct. They didn't have 300,000 troops. American Legend had mentioned that a few times. I tried looking it up, and sources repeatedly say that they had 180,000.
Still more than the Taliban had.
Yes,
But
but
I can't find.
there's something to be said about having a driven force, right?
Right.
I would rather have half the number. I'm just saying, in a battle situation, I'd rather have half the number of troops that are dedicated and radical about fighting than have double the number of troops that are scared shitless and really don't know what the fuck they're doing.
Right. Well, I mean, I believe that any form of government or any government, it needs to have the support of the people and needs to be created by the people. I mean, that's why democracy works in the United States and other parts of the world. I don't think it was ever going to work there because they just don't have the same culture, that they don't want that. It's not as strongly supported as it is here. Maybe over time that'll change, but I don't think we can force it on them.
What about
And
Japan?
I still think the
Well,
best
hold
course
on.
of
that might be a
action for
bit
the future of Afghanistan is for their own people to fight for the government that they want.
Wait, this
But
is
you need,
important.
you
have
need to
have you heard
create
of
an
Japan?
environment.
I have heard of Japan, yeah.
Yeah. Japan didn't have any history of democracy whatsoever. Like, they have, over 2,000 years of imperial rule with no democracy. We came in, we kicked the door, and we said, "You're a democracy now." And you know what? They have a culture of democracy that's one of the strongest, most vibrant democracies in the world.
You literally, in creating any, like, allowing individuals to form like ideas of democracy, you need to create an environment in which those like ideas can not only just like multiply, but in which those ideas are safe. And like in the Taliban's Afghanistan, that doesn't seem likely.
Right. We started drawing down our troop levels before we defeated the Taliban, right? Like,
How do we defeat the Taliban, though? They're decentralized. It's like, how do you defeat BLM?
I don't
What?
think it's quite like defeating BLM.
I
Like,
don't-
how many troops would you say
I
BLM
don't think
has?
the
If you're even
Taliban
going
is
to
fairly
establish that,
decentralized.
there needs to be some. I'm sorry. To even establish that they have 75,000 troops, there needs to be some kind of central organization, and they're not actually decentralized. They are centralized, but they have it's. I can't remember the term for it, but autonomous branches, right? That can operate
Right.
when necessary independently.
Yeah, and they're not going anywhere. It's going to be like impossible to try and root them all out.
It's like trying to catch air.
No,
Yeah.
it's like trying to fight an army which has not only divisions but also companies and squads and yeah.
They are hardly an army.
this
They're
is just
deploying guerrilla
Vietnam
warfare.
times 20.
They're,
I'm
like,
sorry,
you can't
they're
distinguish
they're not
civilians
hardly
from-
an army.
They are
They're not
a
hardly
very
an army.
They're a veteran army at best. Like
They-
because if they can take down an army,
awesome. They're a veteran army. Yep. Hell yeah.
like if they can take down like the entire Afghan army, I would say they're a pretty hefty threat.
Yeah.
I mean, they're hardly taking it down. The Afghan army is just leaving.
It looks like they've been growing
Yeah.
for over 10 years.
I would also point out that the thing about the Taliban is that when we're actually talking about like who these people are, what do they really consist of? I mean, obviously they're the people at the top of the food chain might actually be ex-government officials or people that have been kicking around for a while. But the average man in the field, the average guy running around with an AK, that might be your cousin Steve. That you have to consider that when we're actually talking about like the actual military that we recognize of
You know what?
Afghanistan is talking about
I-
fighting. You're talking about
I've,
people who are considered Islamic radicals and who are
I've
advocating
staved off-
for a totalitarian regime.
I've staved off on all my like fucking predictions and stuff like that. I can't wait until all of you agree with me, because in the end, we're going to have an Afghan government controlled by a terrorist group of individuals.
Yeah,
So-
before 9/11, they were controlled by
really.
before. We didn't care then.
I'm gonna
right.
finish. I'm gonna finish. So we're going to have an Afghan country controlled by a terroristic group of individuals, and
Okay.
in the end,
Okay.
in the end, we're going to have this group reach outside of Afghanistan. They have before. I have no reason to believe they won't. So we're going to
I said
have.
this to Tim when he asked me if I wanted to join. He asked me my opinion on this, and I said we need to leave, and that the game now was containment.
I'm
That's the
going
game
to
now.
I'm going to hardcore just finish what I was saying. So we're going to have this group of individuals who currently fucking run Afghanistan. They're in charge. They're going to lead outside of that. They always have. They always will.
Like they're going to
Taliban.
invade another country?
Taliban out. No. The Taliban, Afghanistan, the Taliban inside of Afghanistan, Al Qaeda, these countries don't quote unquote invade other countries. We're
Wow,
just
that's
going to
great
have,
then. They can just sit there and not bother us.
except for we're going to have the pop shots that are going to happen.
The what?
How is
The
this any
pop
different than
shots.
what we have
The
going on now?
hold on.
wonderful
Yeah, do you think-
pop shots. So in the
What do
end,
you mean by that?
we're-
Can you
And-
explain exactly what you mean by that?
Yep. I am trying to directly. We're going to have an incident where we have a couple hundred people die. Maybe less than that. Maybe tens of people die. In the end, the U.S. is going to use this as justification for war inside of Afghanistan.
Maybe I'm a cold-hearted bastard, but
And
I
they
would
should.
rather.
And they should.
Maybe I am a cold-hearted bastard, but I would rather there be a potential Taliban government in Afghanistan. I would rather that exist.
Really
And then
quickly, not
they
potential,
Wait,
current
hold on. Let him
existing
finish.
Taliban
Let
government.
him
I would
finish, man.
rather. I would rather there be a Taliban government in Afghanistan, and they try and pull some sort of terroristic shit, and then we go blow them the fuck up with drones, and then we go back to living our lives. Then play this continual game where we send people in, try to pacify it, and keep sending people in. I'm sorry, but if they want to go, and they want
unfortunate game of 3,000 people inside the entire country of Afghanistan. Like, fuck.
But I think your
That's way
argument-
too much. That's way too much.
I think your prediction here is already wrong. The U.S. population
so?
knows what happens when we invade Afghanistan. Now, no one is going to be in support of re-invading Afghanistan and doing this whole thing all over
Wait,
again. There's not
I'm
gonna be
sorry.
support for that.
Wow.
And any terrorist attack that occurs, we've already been undergoing terrorist attacks. We had the Boston bombing. Those are people that were radicalized by overseas radical Islamic terrorists, and then they go and commit acts of violence in this country. And a lot of it is based in the fact that we were occupying the Middle East.
Ale,
So I think that
I
those
can't wait. I
attacks will
can't
die
wait.
down, if anything.
I can't wait to see the actual polls, because all of the wonderful people who are talking about how we need to pull out of Afghanistan and how Afghanistan is like a dumbass war that we shouldn't be involved in are all really fucking quickly changing their opinion based off what's actually happening when we pull out of Afghanistan.
I'm not
yeah,
doubting
yeah,
that.
yeah.
I'm
So
not
wait,
doubting
hey,
that if we-
can't wait to see. I can't wait to
Right.
see like American polls on what
Can you
the
wait, like, at
population
least 30
wants.
seconds? Wait, so AL, yeah, what you said is, I think, yeah, fundamentally, I think kind of correct, is that a lot of the terrorism is a result of United States occupation. For instance, we were talking about like the slow and steady progress, and eventually we were going to get rid of the Taliban. But it looks as though the size of the Taliban has increased exponentially since at least 2008, where it was 11,000, 2010, 36,000, 2014, 60,000, now in 2021, about 200,000. So it seems as though there was progress, and it was progress as in the Taliban was getting stronger. So we were invigorating the Taliban by being in Afghanistan. I wonder what would be the response to that.
I don't know. This idea that maybe I misunderstood you, but what you're saying is that our occupation was what led to the Taliban getting support. Is that right?
It seems to be that way.
I believe the
All right,
Boston
so-
bombers, their manifesto specifically stated
How
that
so?
they wanted
Yes.
the U.S. troops to withdraw from the Middle East, and that was the whole reason they
Right.
did that attack.
I
That
just
is
want to
correct.
say this idea that the U.S. Fighting the Taliban, and of course, this collateral damage that happens. The U.S. fighting Taliban and the collateral damage from that was, leading to all the strength of the Taliban.
Partially, yeah.
Weren't you guys just saying that in the last 18 months or so, while we've had a ceasefire, they've been building up? It seems that us not taking the fight to them has made them stronger, right? I don't know how. It
Okay,
seems
so-
like you guys are talking like we're fighting the Borg. Fight them and they get stronger. Don't fight them, they get
Well,
stronger.
no.
Like I don't
No, so Tim, so let me specify. This has been going on for a long time. When this war first started, I was, very much for it. Thought, we were doing the right thing, that yes, we should be doing it. Why haven't we still defeated the Taliban? I mean, 20 years later, and we're still haven't done it. So,
Why is the Taliban getting
I
stronger?
agree with a lot of people. Let's
Why is
go
that
in there
important?
and get rid of, the enemy, and be done. We still haven't gotten rid of the enemy. We
Why-
still can't seem
So-
to
I
figure
can
out
tell
who
you-
they are, where they are,
Really
how
quickly.
they.
I can tell you, TC, and for everyone on the stream, I'm sorry, I feel like it's some advantage that's unfair, but like I'm just going to share another image here that very clearly, to me, says why we didn't defeat them. And I'm going to read out for anyone who's not watching actively. These are our troop levels in Afghanistan. 2001, 9,700. 2002, 9,700. 2003, 13,000. 2004, 18,000. 2005, 17,000. 2006, I mean, you guys can just assume it's next year, right?
Okay.
20,000, 24,000, 32,000, 69,000, 96,000, 94,000, 65, then 43, then
So
32,
Tim,
then 9,000 for the rest.
my
next 5
problem
years.
is then
Okay, interesting.
why didn't we get rid of people that couldn't run a war? So obviously we didn't have enough troops. We weren't doing it correctly. But instead of fixing
Easy.
but hold on, Trilly. Instead of
Yep.
being fixed, it just allows to be fuck up after fuck up after fuck up. And I'm sorry, at some point you got to say no. We're
Wait.
not going to consider, continuing to do the same, the same
Why?
thing.
TC.
Because
why?
we're not,
Why should we say no at this
because
point?
we're not winning. We're not winning.
Stupid.
I
Wait,
It's
wait,
a
no,
waste
wait,
of
wait,
money.
wait,
It's a
wait.
waste of money.
So
It's
we no, the money thing doesn't even exist. We're talking about what at most $50 billion a year, which is
$50
absolutely
billion
nothing in
a
America.
year that we could put into our crumbling
No, I'm
infrastructure? No.
sorry. I'm sorry.
totally
I'm sorry.
agree.
I'm really sorry, TC. I assume that you understand the fucking political system that the United States is. $50 billion is absolutely nothing.
You may think it's absolutely nothing, and I know most people don't seem to understand money anymore. But to me, that's a big deal.
Yeah, sure. And to you, that might mean something, but overall, politically, that means absolutely nothing when we're talking about when we're talking about the actual government's
And
budget.
we're also being entirely vacuous here, like talking about like $50,000 to infrastructure or anything like that. Like that, it's hard to get in.
Billion.
Even if I were to indulge this, it would hard to like in our current like state of politics. I feel like that will be kind of hard to like push things through, considering the partisan.
Yeah,
So
I don't care.
$25 to the new military
Billion.
industrial complex.
Billion.
Trillion. No, trillion.
No, billion.
I think it's about like
No,
at most like 6 trillion until by 2050 or something.
There's been $1 trillion spent on Afghanistan. One. Single.
I'm not talking about Afghanistan. Didn't Biden, the Biden administration, I know, recently approve like a 25 trillion military and industrial package?
25 trillion.
Probably, maybe. I don't know.
If they
Sure,
do,
not
that's
25
going
trillion,
to
no, they did
Afghanistan.
not.
If their
I'll
budget
have to
if their budget extended to $25 trillion over 10 years, then yeah, sure. Okay.
Just a,
We're still really quickly talking about the cost of Afghanistan because you brought up the cost. The cost of Afghanistan was literally absolutely nothing in the United States budget.
So I just have Tim. Can you pull up that chart again from earlier?
Let me see if I.
Yeah, because I
Did
think that chart actually supports my claim.
Sure, I think I got it here. Okay.
Yeah. So the chart. So in 2008, it looks like the Taliban was 11,000 strong, and then in 2010, it is about a little over 3 times as big, 36,000. And then in 2000, so that was the amount of troops rising, and then the amount of troops goes down, and it keeps rising. So 60,000, and then in 2021, about 200,000 when the troops are about the same. So
Where
it
are
seems
you
as though
getting the
there's no real
Taliban
correlation.
strength?
This is just the Wikipedia page for the Taliban.
Could you post it in the Twitch chat?
Yeah, sure.
In support of what Atelix is saying, though, I think it's pretty well determined that a lot of the reason terrorists join up is because of U.S. occupation. I mean, we can even just look at a simple scenario, the fact that we have drone strikes going on where we're hitting civilian targets by mistake. I mean, can you imagine growing up as a kid without a father because the U.S.
Did you hear
mistakenly
about the
took him
night
for a
rapes?
terrorist and killed him.
So do
And then
U.S.
wouldn't you
drone
have a lot of
strikes
hate for
lead
the US?
towards more
I can't even
terrorists
finish
or
my point
less?
without truly trying to
Hold on.
cut me
Let
off and
American.
talk.
I
Let
literally
But that's
just
American
asked
finish.
you
basically
the question.
Wait, let him
Okay.
finish.
So hold on.
That's
Hold on.
basically the situation that we're in right now, where our occupation is doing more harm than good, or at least it was when we were doing military operations. And yeah, we had the ceasefire, but then during the ceasefire, they just recruited more soldiers into the Taliban. So clearly, there were a lot of people that hated the U.S. government and were willing to fight the government that we put in place
Oh,
in
jeez.
Afghanistan.
I'm sorry. This is something else. It's an interesting thing. Alex, I don't think this supports your argument because let's finish the numbers you were talking about there. So I'll again put out the image that we were talking about before. So anyone watching, just like in your head, to contrast what you're seeing on this image on the right hand for U.S. troop totals. In 2001, the year we invaded, Taliban was marked as having 45,000 troops. In 2008, it was marked as having 11,000 troops. And then
And then in 2
in
years,
2010, it was marked as having 36,000. In 2014, it was marked as having 60,000. In 2021, after, by the way, we had a ceasefire with them in 2019, right? And then in 2021, they were marked as having 200,000 troops, which also I want to bring up. 200,000 troops. This actually, this is something that's news to me because I had not seen any recent figures for their numbers, and so when someone in the chat said they had 75,000 this year, I just took it at face value. But the Wikipedia on them says that they this year had more troops than the Afghani military. So I just want to bring that in real quick. The idea that the Afghani military was ready to handle them is just a farce. But I'm sorry, this is
yeah,
what
they
you were
probably
trying to
wouldn't.
say, Alex. Go ahead.
And I imagine they would have been less ready because I imagine the Taliban. I mean, the Taliban is going to grow either way, right?
It seems like
Well,
their fastest growth was when we weren't fighting them.
Well, no, I mean recently. Actually, we've scaled up.
Well,
Like,
I mean,
do any of you know about the what's it called, the night raids in Wardock that happened in like around 2018? Like with the Trump administration, we seem to have like scaled up a lot of weird shit with contractors, like a lot of like like war crimes have been going on. Like,
And
do you know the specific case of Wardock?
that impacted total troop numbers? How?
well, I mean,
Well, no,
if you kill
no,
a
it was just very
cockroach, you
brutal.
can't
Like,
make more cockroaches.
no, I mean it was just a war crime. I imagine like this like feeds into anti-American sentiment.
Um,
This is not something
Dick
that was
would
known in
like
the
to.
United States until recently.
Dick would like to point out that West Point says that there could be 60K core troops with up to 200K supporters and allies in total for the Taliban.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, but either way, the numbers that we're seeing here are all using the same standards as one another. So when we see 11,000 and we see 36,000, I mean, the proportions are correct, right? So it's rising. That's the argument. Rising exponentially.
Yep.
Wasn't there? Oh no, go ahead.
Overall, wait. Overall, so we would agree that the U.S.
I
pulling
mean,
out.
I still don't see
Not,
anyone.
so we
I
would
still don't see
agree.
anyone actually making an argument against.
No, go ahead.
Oh,
Against what?
y'all hear me?
Yeah, we
Okay,
Yes.
can hear you.
don't hear me. Sorry,
Yes.
Discord and Twitch both paused at once. I don't. I still don't. I haven't heard anyone actually make an argument against the idea of actual public opinion in the United States for this. I've heard people make arguments for Afghanistan public opinion in this, but
I,
truly, when you
I'm
when
sorry.
Trilly
I
was
think.
making
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. I thought you were done, man.
no, when I've heard Trilly make the argument for hey, next time there's a terrorist attack, there will be some people that are vengeful that are saying, hey, we need to have retribution for this, and I don't doubt him in that context. But at the moment, that's not really the reality we're facing. We're facing the reality of we have a war that's been going on now for 20 years, and whether if you count deaths by suicide or deaths by actually getting shot at or blown up with an IED or something, we've had hundreds or thousands, depending on the metric you go by, people Americans that have died. And the reality is, if we leave these people alone, they're going to have their own problems to deal with. I'm not saying there won't be some crazy, vengeful people that are going to come after us, but I mean, they were crazy, vengeful people living there before they even attacked us, right? Even before 9/11, the Taliban was in charge. They weren't actively after us. They were terrorizing their own people. They were a threat to the people of
Wait,
Russia and China and India. I mean,
really
they were just a
sorry.
global issue.
I'm really sorry. You're saying they're not actively against us. They literally planned 9/11. Like, what do you mean they're not actively against us?
So 1 second, because I think Texan did make a good point, is we do have
Okay.
polls in America where, more and more Americans are saying no, we want out. So are
Sure.
we, going to take those polls into account?
No, I would take those polls into account the same way that I would take polls into account for roughly every other political issue. To where overall, I just think these people are uninformed.
Right, and also I
This is
just gotta
war.
say, like, I mean, come on, guys. No one here is that much of a pure populist where we're gonna say, whatever the American people want is what we should do. Look, we do this all the time in Texas. I know that you don't support a $15 minimum wage, even though most Americans do, right? Like you're not
Yeah.
going to say we should just do it because that's what the people want. You're still going to say, yeah, and they're wrong, right? Which is what we're doing here. We're telling you guys this is wrong.
It feels like the scripts are flipped here in this case.
Well, I mean,
No.
just because there's a policy that he doesn't support doesn't mean that he can't still take the populist opinion of, well, even though I don't necessarily support it, since the majority of people do, we should have
No,
it.
he can't take the argument that because it's popular, that means I should support it. Is the argument that's being made here.
I seriously
Oh.
think it's an argument of convenience. We can also, we can go both ways in this, right? Anyone listening who's a Republican, you probably don't support a $15 minimum wage, even though most Americans do. Anyone that's a Democrat, 4 out of 5 Americans support voter ID, and you guys probably still don't, right? Like, we can go either way with this. Like, no one's going to say, well, the Americans support it, so we should have $15 minimum wage
Well-
and mandatory voter ID, right?
Tim, what I was
Well,
trying
really,
to point out,
I was
so
trying to
1
make the point
second.
that we've
So
been.
so 1 second, Texan. What I was trying to point out, though, is we see politicians. We saw it during the Vietnam War. Once the Vietnam War became unpopular, politicians started running on making sure that they were going to end the war, blah, blah, blah. So now we have politicians starting, to, flip the script. So, could that also, you're saying that, God, I'm trying to figure. I had it perfectly in my head, but now I'm having a hard time doing it. Politicians are still going to run on this, and politicians, if they think that this motivates their voter base for good or for bad, and I'm not picking either side,
Right.
will then hamstring the military, and we sort of see it happen.
Right. So, like,
I
my
wouldn't-
thing here is that
doesn't the popularity of the war sort of isn't it sort of important to the American people? Because if you can't get the American people on board with it and they don't support it, then you don't get politicians who support it, and then it's over.
I just feel like it's
Mm.
extraneous, right? Because, like, if
Okay.
if I asked
Well,
everyone
I
in
only
this
brought
room,
it up
1
because
second, Texan,
we were
please.
talking about.
If I asked everyone in this room or even everyone in the audience, what are your thoughts on these 100 political issues, right? Not a single person is going to say whatever the majority says down the line, right? And
Yeah,
no
I think
one
you're right.
does, right? I mean, if that, that itself is a kind of pure populism, which, someone could argue for, but literally no one here actually believes it. So, like, I don't know why it's being brought up as if, like,
So
everyone
the
here should
reason
say,
why I
like, yeah,
brought
Nobody's
it up.
consistent on this.
The
Nobody's
reason why I
consistent.
brought it up was because the argument had been made repeatedly from both you, Tim, and from Truly that about the popularity of the Americans being there, right? Y'all brought up the popularity of us.
wait, we didn't bring it up. We you guys were talking about whether or not, we were wanted there. And then in response, we were bringing up, hey, they don't want the Taliban in control. They support like the general mission of what we're doing.
Like literally half this discussion has been, well, some people want us there.
So really
we have to go
quickly,
into this.
yeah. What you're trying to raise right now is very
Tim.
different.
You know I'm not a populist. You and me have been
Yeah.
talking. I maybe even friends, I would say now for nearly a year and a half. You know I'm not a populist. But
Right.
the thing is that
Depends on how you go about
we're
this
actually
conversation.
talking about the topic of what is actually matters when it comes to the idea of how are we going to approach this war? We cannot be there indefinitely in the capacity that we are. We either take a step towards an integration of them, move them into like a more Western fashion like Germany, or we leave.
Look.
And the general sentiment is we leave. I don't disagree with you that things could have been done better, but something like this was bound to happen eventually.
Yeah, on the populist point, I really gotta agree with the colonial side on this one, because like for example, if the argument is being made that Afghanistan is none of our business, then what does it matter what we think about it, right? So.
Yeah, if the argument is literally Joe Biden's fucking press conference where he says, "Hey, we gave them everything they had, none of our business. We're clapping our way through this." Like, no, this is memey as fuck.
Well, I didn't understand that.
Oh yeah, shit. Oh, which one of these is the actual article?
Oh, and don't forget we're at the 11:50, so we're at 11:50, so at the 10-minute mark. Tim, did you have any public service announcements you'd like to make?
I love all of you, and you should follow Blue Politics. So twitch.tv. Yeah. Fuck you.
Not my Tim.
So
Hashtag
twitch.tv/Blue Politics. We're awesome. We hang out and we do this dumb shit that we're doing right now. And
this is the best ventriloquist act you could have ever done.
And if you're interested in doing it outside of this, on discord.gg/Blue Politics, you get the same fucking experience. Bunch of dumbass people who want to argue about dumbass things.
Yeah,
I wouldn't call this dumb.
I
I have on good authority that Joe Biden is currently tuned in and deciding whether or not we re-enter Afghanistan based off who wins this debate. So I think what we do here is very important.
That's great.
I would hope so, because if Joe Biden was deciding whether or not we fucking engage in Afghanistan based off this debate, Joe Biden would be engaging in Afghanistan.
Joe, listen here, Joe.
I don't think so.
Joe, you're a pussy. Get the fuck back in.
I think he'd just be confused and just exit quietly.
Well, what's going on?
Now, when I was a young boy, we the thing.
Honestly, I think it's too late for his bedtime. I think he's in bed right now.
Yeah, it's bedtime. You have to go
that's
a couple hours ago.
I love all of the arguments against Joe Biden, and we're just gonna meme our way into the fact that Trump wasn't like as fucking memey as Joe Biden.
So for whatever it's worth, like on the opinion polls, I actually have been approving of Joe Biden's presidency until August. Like this is actually what's swapping it. Like this is absolutely horrendous. Like I don't know. Like I know a lot of you guys say like oh how long are we gonna be there? Like we've been the occupation in Afghanistan was going well, man. If we kept there, we could have actually made this work out. I seriously think this could have worked out, and we had so much gain.
We made it work for literally the last 20 years.
And like we
you
had
want
so
to go
much
ahead
gain.
and add the 51st state?
We don't need a 51st state. Do you think Germany's a
Afghanistan
51st state? Do you think Japan's a 51st state?
That's something. I think that's something where we could have really made great progress in Afghanistan.
No, I'm not advocating for any of these countries to become some form of like united of like.
Oh,
actual
so you want a
state.
colonial puppet like the Philippines, right?
Damn right I do. Fuck yeah.
Okay.
So
Sure.
if you want to simplify like an actual argument all the way down to, oh, you're just colonialist. Sure. You know what? I'll fucking eat that bullet.
No,
straight away.
Because I actually am for a form of colonialism.
Come
This
on,
is
Shirley,
not
you're
it.
better than Destiny.
Texan, have you met Ayamak? You do your job.
You're a liberal shill.
You mean I am okay?
Neoliberal shit.
Yeah, I've mean that. I've met
It's
that
pronounced
communist.
Yamok.
Yamok.
Yeah, so I'm
Go to the
I'm
Yamok.
That was
okay.
way too much from the throat, man.
I'm okay with the level of U.S. imperialism. Like I would never argue
Just a
against
little
that.
bit.
Again, because I fall back on the same like moral principle of like I want what's best for me. And what's best for me is what's best for my country. Because I'm part of my country. And fuck.
I think you and me operate on very similar principles, but we're coming from two very different points of view.
I would be so interested in how we come on different points of view on this one.
Come to the after party. for
Okay,
more.
so we
So-
it's 11:55. Tim,
So yeah, I just like this. TC, you gotta go somewhere.
Oh my
TC's like
God.
like Tim's mom or something. Like,
you got-
get ready, Tim. Get ready.
She's all
Guys,
our
we
mom.
gotta wrap it up. TC's got some World of Warcraft to play, so
no, I
No,
gotta
no,
walk
no,
my
no,
dog.
no.
dog.
It's not
Closing
World of
statement.
Warcraft. Come
don't
on,
try to
look
pin
up
this on your
TC.
dog.
Fine, it's
You're-
League
you-
of Legends.
You've been
It is,
hankering for
my
World of
friend.
Warcraft, and we
My
know.
dogs are literally
Really quickly,
trained
really
to
quickly,
go to
really
the bathroom
quickly.
if it's done.
Outside of TC, closing statements, my friends.
What? Oh, truly, that's not
So-
fair.
Hold on.
I do gotta
We all
clarify.
know it's not World of Warcraft.
closing
Dog.
It's
statement.
not
She
World of
played
Closing
EverQuest for
statements.
16 days.
Yeah, it's not
It's
World of
EverQuest
Warcraft.
Online.
Yes.
Fine,
Wait.
it's Paperboy.
All
That
right,
is
so closing statements, please, my
Okay.
friends.
okay.
So
Thank
Ulysses,
you.
Oh, lovely. I'm first. So I think that this conversation was entirely entertaining. I think that a lot of the positions that many of the opponents, contrary to myself, were talking about, kind of were falling back on different positions. We were pivoting a bit to like, oh, this like the people don't want us there, and then I heard that like the government doesn't want us there. And then we talk about like the cost, even though the cost is relatively low. We didn't even spend, according to Truly, we've only spent like $1 trillion over like 20 years, whereas like our $1 trillion infrastructure bill is being spent over 10 years. So like it's even, the cost of that is even less than our infrastructure right now per year. I just think that like what's happened in Afghanistan is like the worst decision we've probably made based on the amount of ground we've actually made. I think that in sum and total, it's hard for me to like swallow the pill that we're like we're some people's decisions aren't necessarily swayed to the extent it'll change their decision on like the amount of mass casualty events we're probably going to see in Afghanistan following the Taliban takeover. So yeah, I just think that Afghanistan, we had a lot of potential there. We had a lot of progress, and like in the matter of weeks, it's basically we had this like grandeur idea on a chalkboard, and we just like wiped it off, and we're back to nothing.
so real quick for everyone listening, I know I've seen a lot of hands up. We're doing closing statements for the podcast. After this, I'm just gonna keep the channel open. If you guys want to talk, raise your hand. As long as you're a member, we can pull you up. Just so you guys are aware, this can continue. You guys can share your thoughts. Guero?
Well, I was gone for a big bit of discussion, but I still stand unfazed. I don't think the ones here who are pro the withdrawal really demonstrably proved that not withdrawing would overall be better for the world than withdrawing. So I do stand unfazed, and although ultimately this discussion was entirely pointless, because I mean the withdrawal already happened, it was a great conversation, and although I am objectively right because I'm super smart, I enjoyed having this discussion with you guys.
Thank you, Ben Shapiro.
Texan?
Hey, as long as you agree with me, you were objectively right.
Okay.
And vice versa.
Though,
Always.
as someone who's actually on the opposition of what they said, yeah, no, I kind of agree with them in the sense that my opinion hasn't really changed. But you know, it was nice discussing it. But I would take one step further, and I would say, you know, when we talk about this is all fine and dandy and good, but the cold reality of the situation is, you know, it's already happened. And while I respect the point of view of folks like Tim and Truly, I kind of fall against the side of America World Police. That really kind of sees, at least to me, to be one of the big key arguments that it's our obligation to go in and help these people out. And I think that's a very noble goal, but I think there's better ways to do it than fighting a endless war in a country on the other side of the world.
Telex?
All right. Yep. There are okay. So yeah, the withdrawal has happened, and then the next question, something I think is particularly important, is what's going to happen to the refugees. So far, I think Canada said that they're going to take 20,000 refugees. For the United States, it's pretty unclear. I suspect that the United States is going to take a really cowardly approach and take a very small amount, maybe not at all. So what we can do is just bother the fuck out of the United States through Congress people, whatever, protests, do what you want to take the maximum amount of refugees, just as many as possible. That's what can be done because what's happening right now is the fault of the United States. So it's best that we take as many refugees as we can, because practically speaking, that is what we can do.
TC?
Truly said that I didn't get a chance.
Okay.
Guys,
American legend?
PC, you do get a chance. Chill.
Sure. I
Please.
thought Truly would go before me, but I guess I'll go. Yeah, the U.S. really had no reason to get involved in the Middle East. 9/11, I guess, but our long-standing occupation in there has clearly not worked. Everything pointed to the Afghan government being ready for this change, or at least that's what our government thought. I guess they weren't. Yeah, it sucks that a lot of stuff is going to go down the drain, but that's just what's going to happen. Falls on the Afghanistan government for being ineffective and not doing what the people need to happen. I was just looking at a chart for the civilians killed and injured. I had stayed fairly consistent from 2009 to 2021, so I don't think we had too big of an effect on that. I think Afghanistan has and always will be a very dangerous place and not something worth invading. Yeah, that's really all I got to say. It's not our job to go and fix other countries' problems. We did our mission when we killed Osama bin Laden. That's all we should have done. Now we just got to focus on defense, make sure that they don't try and do terrorist attacks in our country, and that's about all we can do and all we should do.
Truly?
Yeah, so I think the idea of the fact that the Taliban's going to just remotely take control over Afghanistan and leave it at that is memey as shit to me. It's a wonderful idea. Wonderful idea. I believe in all of you who believe in that. But yeah, no, I'm sorry. The idea that the Taliban's going to take control of the country and just fuck off in their own country is something we have no evidence to point towards. Every single bit of evidence that we have to point towards the Taliban. Yep, hard nope.
Truly runs
Every single bit of evidence that we have to point towards, like how the Taliban acts when they're in control, is a lot of direct fucking disenfranchisement, which is like, in this case, like stoning women for fucking wearing the wrong clothes, all the way up into the fact that they support the idea of doing things like bombing American areas. So overall, yeah, I think it's a matter of time until we're literally just back in Afghanistan at 2002 levels, to where we're invading from ground zero, and I'm just overall waiting for that.
Sorry, waiting for what?
Overall waiting for the fact that we're going to invade Afghanistan again, based off some terroristic attack that's going to happen.
All right. So, guys, we'll go ahead and close up here. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. I do appreciate it. We're going to be back. Let me just...
Tuesday.
Tuesday. What direct what topic do we have for Tuesday?
Oh shit. Yeah, so we look at DMs. I think Tuesday we have something like statehood.
We
Is
got
that
Me Too.
Tuesday? Yeah, so Tuesday is DC, Puerto Rico statehood.
No, it's not.
Wait,
No.
that was supposed to be the week before.
Yeah, but it was
Hey,
canceled.
Chill,
Shut up.
chill. There's been a lot of conversations about it. Chill.
Fucking bitching because I was sick one night a fucking week ago. Fuck you, man. Don't need to remind people I was sick one night. Anyways, Tuesday we're gonna be talking about has
Too.
Me Too gone too
Yep.
far?
There it is.
All right, so we'll close